One of the most interesting things about growing up Canadian is the different branding that we get with everything,
Yeah.
and different toys, for instance. Like
Mhm.
we've got our terrific Duke Kaboom.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, Duke Kaboom is just fantastic. The way that he gets zero airtime when you launch him off the ramp. It's just great.
Yeah, he just topples over, and
Yeah.
yeah. I'm so glad we don't have Evil Knievel. We just
Right.
get Duke Kaboom with his handlebar mustache.
Absolutely. Nothing more Canadian than Duke Kaboom.
Right, but those poses though, whoo
Right.
boy.
Yeah. I mean, he has so many points of articulation. It is
He
fantastic.
he really does. He really does. Um, Hello and welcome to Ignore the Bell. My name is Nathan,
And I'm Tyler.
and we are talking about Toy Story 4. This is going to be such a great conversation
Hmm.
because this is like going to be like a flipped version of the podcast. Because normally it's we're talking about something that you really enjoy, and I just trash the movie.
Yep.
And this is the complete opposite. Although I don't necessarily love it, but I don't have any issues with it. But apparently, this just drives you crazy.
Oof. I have such serious issues with this movie. Yeah, it won the Oscar for Best Animated Feature.
Yep, that was
And
yesterday.
yep,
For when we're releasing this podcast, then
yep. Yeah, and we definitely could have pre-recorded this and still said that because there was no way that any other film was going to beat it out. Um, it's Pixar, it's Toy Story, everybody's going to vote for it. Um,
yes. What were the other ones that were nominated?
I don't know. I think uh, The Abominable or something.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think I saw any of the others. But but yes, I do have serious issues with this film, and we're going to get into it. And there may be no bigger Toy Story fan than me. So
I
this
know.
is this is
That's the
really
thing is like, see, your problem is that you have expectations. And
ooh,
that's what happens to me all the time is that I'll have expectations for competent filmmaking, and then I'm disappointed when I don't get that.
yep.
But anyway, we'll get into it. And just to clarify this, Duke Kaboom's not a real toy, folks. Not a real toy actually sold in Canada.
Yeah,
But our point stands, though, that we do get different branding and we have different toys available in Canada than in the US. Like you had the
absolutely.
example of Kinder Surprise.
Yeah, which apparently is banned in the United States because
Banned.
they are worried about children choking on the toy inside. And Canadians just that doesn't happen here, so
We
we
don't
don't
care
have it
about our
banned.
children as much. You could say maybe kids are smarter in Canada, and like, or like people think that
Yeah,
children are smarter in Canada, so they're not concerned about them swallowing, or because like we've got scarves on all the time covering our face.
yeah. Yeah, I don't know, but I'm thankful for Kinder Surprise. I think they're a great little treat for kids, double treat because edible outside and toy inside.
Right.
This is not sponsored by Kinder Surprise, by the way, but
No, no. If only we could get into that sweet Kinder Surprise money.
absolutely, and then be banned in the States.
That's right. That's right.
Um, yes, and then you had brought up another example, which
Yeah.
is, I think, a fairly little known uh, gem, which is in Canada, it is Siege.
Yes.
And what is it called in the States?
I forget. It's like, I don't know, castles and something else, or like knights and I. Let me try to figure it out. But can you just
Okay.
give a brief explanation?
Yeah, so basically, you have this little, not mat, but you have like this trail between, you can have like the castle on one side and the villagers on the other side. And then you get these little toys like this little cannon or catapult, all sorts of different things, the crossbow. And you literally use these little weapon things to shoot tiny little plastic balls out at the other side, trying to knock over the little plastic men and destroy parts of the castle and the village and all that. Oh my goodness, it is so much fun. We played that thing like crazy growing up.
Oh yeah, like little known outside of our house, but
Right.
inside our family, this is a thing that like we've just gone crazy for. Yeah, I can't actually find it. I think it's like Knights and Catapults or something.
Hmm.
Anyway, um, but I think in part with like all those little pieces and like those little balls that like you're literally firing at
Yeah.
like your opponent, then they were definitely worried about choking hazards and people losing an eye and whatever else. But we've
Yeah.
still got our set, well, multiple sets, and yeah,
It's
that's kind
true.
of a thing that we do. Like we've done multiple times where we'll just have epic battles that'll go on for hours and hours, typically in
Oh
the
yeah.
winter because we're
Yeah.
stuck inside. So why not just have just this game that literally
That's
goes on
true.
for hours?
I hadn't thought of it, the reasoning behind it, but yeah, I always think of it as a winter activity.
But that's
Because
why, because we're just stuck
yeah.
inside. We're wearing like sweaters and like, like sweatpants and all of that. So we're all cozy. So it's like just get all the blankets so that way, tucked around all the corners of the room so that way the balls don't go flying everywhere. But you
Yeah.
don't want to be doing that in the summer. It's too hot.
Yeah, yeah. No, and you need that extra padding as well.
You do, because you do get hit. Like legitimately. Yeah,
Oh
it's a pretty
man.
great game. Um,
So great. But yes, that is also not our sponsor.
No, no. So our sponsor for this podcast is the debate of Foons versus Sporks. Listen, folks, we're not actually being sponsored by either one. We're just being sponsored by the general debate of Foons versus Sporks. So whichever side of the issue you're on, you're on the right side of the argument. Bring this up. I beg you, bring this up at your next family event, and then just have one of those, whether you call it a spoon or sorry, a foon or a spork, and then just say whichever one you think it is. Just be like, hey, what does everybody think about this foon? And then people will be like, you mean a spork? And be, no, I don't mean a spork, I mean a foon. And just let the chaos
And
ensue.
please, yeah, start the debate below if you have strong opinions one way or the other. Even if you don't have strong opinions one way or the other,
Pretend
start
that
the
you do.
debate
Yeah.
in the comments. Yeah, I want to see what people have to say about what it should be called and which you should prefer, I
Yeah,
guess.
I think it started out so strong with Spork, but Foon has been rising in popularity.
Yeah.
And yeah, I gotta say, I'm probably closer to the Foon side
Hmm.
because it sounds sort of like a curse word.
Right. Oh, Foon.
Yeah, I just really like the sound of it. Foon.
Absolutely.
All
Oh
right,
man.
folks, I hope you enjoy the podcast.
Oh man, I wish this discussion could go on forever.
Ignore the bell. We're gonna keep going, people.
So we are talking about Toy Story 4, the 2019 Pixar film directed by Josh Cooley and starring everyone. Yes,
Yep.
even that person that you thought wasn't in it is actually doing voice work in this film. Um,
Yeah.
Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers, he's in it.
Yeah.
Keanu Reeves is in it.
Yeah. Even people who have already passed away, then they're
Uh-huh.
in it too. Don Rickles.
Don Rickles is in it. You're like, I thought he was dead. Yeah, he's still in it somehow. Everyone is in this movie.
Absolutely. Oh man. So yeah, this film.
Uh-huh.
Did you want to keep going with any
No,
sort of
I
overview?
I I want I don't even know what your issues are with this movie, but I know that you were pretty much livid as you get,
Oof.
certainly in regards to a film, like when you saw this, because you had mentioned it in the introduction, but you are one of the biggest Toy Story fans ever.
Absolutely.
Toy Story is your favorite film, is it not?
Yeah, yeah, I would say so.
Okay.
It's yeah, certainly the film I've watched the most. I grew up watching it literally every day for a considerable amount of time. Saw Toy Story 2 in theaters, loved every minute of it. Saw Toy Story 3 in theaters, loved every minute of it. Saw Toy Story 4 in theaters, and I left like at the end as the credits started to roll. This was my expression. I was just like I did not know
Okay.
like I was like I don't know how I feel about this, but I'm not overjoyed by it.
Right. And I knew that you wanted to talk about it right away, but I'm not a huge Toy Story fan. Like I really, really like the movies, But if I watched every movie in the theater where I really enjoy like the previous films or whatever, like I'd be broke. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like
Yeah.
I've got to pick and choose here. So
Yeah.
it just came out on Disney Plus. So if you folks have got Disney Plus, you can go and watch Toy Story 4 if you've not already done so. But I want to know what it is exactly that bothers you. Let me just get like 2 more seconds here. So like my issue, because on this podcast, like I know that I'm often pretty critical, pretty harshly critical of films. And the reason why I'm harshly critical is that I believe that it is mostly executives who are, you know, providing undue influence on a film. And because they're doing things for marketing reasons, and they're not doing things for artistic reasons. And I'm going, screenwriters I know are better than this, directors I know are better than this, and that's where I get frustrated when I know that we can have better films. But so I'm going, that's why, generally speaking, I'm pretty critical and harsh, that I have high expectations of what filmmaking can do. I don't really know what your issue is with Toy Story 4. So lay it on me. What is it that drives you, like, that's driving you crazy with this?
Okay. I feel like I should preface this. I enjoy a great many things in this film.
Sure.
I really do. I think that this film on its own works very well. But
Okay.
this is not a film in and of itself. It is a sequel which is following familiar characters. And
Okay.
to ruin the characters that we have established.
Oh, is this like a Star Wars conversation the way I feel about the new Star Wars movies?
Yes, yes, this is the Luke Skywalker, your feelings on Luke
Oh,
Skywalker
okay. Yeah.
in The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
That's how I feel about Woody in Toy Story 4.
Okay.
Specifically, the way that the film ends. Spoiler alert, if you guys haven't seen Toy Story 4, again, go see it on Disney Plus or whatever.
Yeah.
But Woody, he is defined, he has been defined for the past 3 films as somebody who will always be there
Uh-huh.
for for his kid, which
Uh-huh.
specifically was Andy. And I get that he's not as well loved by Bonnie, but even still, the idea that Woody would leave Bonnie and be like, I guess she'll be okay without me, and leave all of his friends, despite the main song of Toy Story 3 being called We Belong Together, the entire idea of that being Woody saying, no matter what happens, we'll always be together.
Uh-huh.
The gang, the gang says, okay, we'll go off with Bonnie, you can go off with Andy to college. And Woody says, I can't let that happen. And so he ends up, without letting Andy know in any way, like he does this secretly, then he hops in the box with the rest of the gang and says, yeah, we're going to be together. Buzz, Rex, all of us are going to be together. That's the whole point of Toy Story 3, and this film just completely undoes that because Woody is. I get that, yeah, he really cares for Bo Peep, but like, my goodness, it's not his character. It's not. It
Okay.
goes against everything that his character is.
Okay. So when I was watching this movie, I could not. I mean, I'm sure I haven't looked at any critics' writings about this film, but it's so obvious that this film is it is metaphorically through the idea of the relationship between a toy and a child, right? It's really about divorce.
Mm.
Like the entire thing is about divorce. And like, so the child is a spouse and the toy is the other spouse. And Bo Peep has become a divorcee, where you think my life is over. That was everything that defined me. That was the ultimate relationship that I have in my life. That was
Mm.
supposed to be a life relationship, and then it gets destroyed. And everybody who's like, oh, you have a toy, like, or you have a kid, because everybody out there is trying to find this thing, like this one person to bond to, and this lifelong relationship. And then the frightening thing and kind of the horrifying thing is that Bo Peep not only doesn't have a kid anymore, but she's living her best life. Single, independent. She's on her own. She's got a kicky new sports car with the skunk. You know, she's got her friends that she hangs out with, and she's just totally unattached. She's traveling the world. She's a free, independent woman, and she doesn't have a kid to tie her down. And the idea that, yeah, you could have a really good life and a really good relationship with your kid, but if that relationship comes to an end, that doesn't mean that your life is over. Or you shouldn't stay in a relationship where it's just sad and they don't appreciate you and they don't care about you and you don't have any passions or hobbies or interests anymore, and you're just kind of winding down and you're just lost in the back of a closet. That it's so, I don't know whether that makes it a good or bad film, but it sure isn't a kid's theme. Like that,
Right.
this seems like it's written by a bunch of 40-year-olds
Mhm.
who all have had a divorce and are now ultimately out there trying to restart their lives and figure out, who am I now that I'm not attached to this person. Because you watch this movie, you go, like, if somebody just said, okay, here's the reading, and then you go and you look at it and it just says the film is actually about divorce, the kid is a spouse, and like, and every conversation, every line of dialogue about this is really about that topic. Because it definitely feels like a film that's written by 40-year-olds who've had a divorce and are trying to figure it out. You know, do I start over with somebody new and that's going to be different? You know, and then I really have to try to like adapt my life to theirs. Or do I just become independent? And instead of saying like, oh, that's a horrible thing, I can't actually just be out there on my own in the world without a kid, a lost toy, that like it's essentially reappropriating this term of like divorcee, instead of it being a bad word, because that's historically been a bad word culturally, but instead saying like, no, it's a good thing. I'm actually happy with the fact that I'm on my own, and I don't really resent the relationship that I've had in the past, but I'm not there anymore, and I don't really want that in the future. And
Right.
that's a really weird message for a kids movie. Really
Yeah.
weird, because it's not about kids getting through their parents' divorce.
Right. Yeah.
It's about, like I said, it's like totally written for grown-ups, two grown-ups. Like,
Yeah, yeah, no, that's a really good insight there. And so it is. We do have to talk about the fact that this film was delayed by like a couple years at least, due in large part, as far as I have been able to tell, to the sexual allegations against John Lasseter, who was originally, the chief writer and director of
mm,
this film. And now he only has an original story by credit. That's the only credit that he has in the final film. Um, and he had described it as a love story slash romantic comedy inspired by the story of him and his wife, him like meeting his wife or something along those lines. Um, and apparently, after he was, let go from Pixar and everything, then they threw out 75% of the script
mm,
and had to do all these rewrites and everything, basically changed the entire story. And yeah, so it's interesting to think that, like this is a story about divorce when it was originally going to be a story, like a love story, a romantic comedy, which is definitely not what this film is. This film feels like another Toy Story,
yeah,
which is stupid in my opinion, because
yeah,
they had said so many times like, yeah, no, the story of like Buzz and Woody and Andy, then that story is over. It's three films and that's it. And then yeah, and then to do another one of, hey, we have to rescue a toy or whatever, or hey, we have to get back to whatever. It's all the different films thrown into one.
it is.
And
It
it's so
is.
frustrating because I'm like, there's not really like there's new stuff, but it's so much of rehashing that it's frustrating in that way. Again, there are a lot of things about this movie that I do really, really like. but I really don't like that end result of going completely against who Woody is, that he would never give up on his kid because that's who he is. And I get that, it is, this story of, now that you've, explained that, then it's this story of Woody realizing that, okay, I shouldn't try so hard to stay in this relationship
Correct.
when I could be, on my own, helping other people get into those relationships. And I do think that, there is certainly uh, some consistency there with Woody wanting to help other toys,
Yes.
but it would never, never go against him caring for his kid, which we even see at the beginning of this film, where, like nobody seems to care about, Forky and, or, even Bonnie going to the first kindergarten orientation, then
Uh-huh.
Woody goes with her and he does help her and he
Yep.
loves that. That gives him so much joy to be able to help Bonnie in that situation. And then he continues to try to help her because he cares so much for her. And this idea that he just leaves her at the end because of Bo Peep, honestly, just makes me resent Bo Peep.
Well, yes, it's definitely the influence of Bo Peep, because you're saying like that it feels unearned, that that's not who Woody is, but this is Woody after being heavily influenced by Bo Peep, who gets to
Hmm.
this point. But it's also an interesting thing because I think it is somewhat consistent with Woody's character, because he has been in many ways selfish and then balancing that out with selflessness.
Hmm.
So when Buzz first shows up, Woody is so jealous because he's selfish, because he wants all of the attention, and
Right.
that he becomes more and more selfless as the films go on, of realizing that just because there's a new toy that comes along and gets the attention of his kid doesn't mean that he is loved any less. And that it's these acts of selflessness. So he gives up his voice box to Gabby to try
Hmm.
to help her
I love
find
that
the
moment.
kid.
I
So
absolutely love that. I think that's perfect.
right, totally selfless. And then this whole thing of setting it up so that way, like to do everything he can to instruct Forky in his role, his purpose, and then getting Forky back to Bonnie. That's all like these selfless acts, but then also realizing that he can do more for so many children by becoming independent and orchestrating these different scenarios to get toys into the hands of children who will love them. That these are all these selfless acts, and it's getting into the big question of what is the purpose of a toy. Is it to selfishly get as much attention as you can, or is it to bring joy to children? And he ultimately becomes more selfless by the end of this, by realizing I can give more joy to the world and to children, even though I won't selfishly get as much of that affection spread towards me, but I can at least get other toys to fulfill their purpose.
Yeah.
And I don't I hear what you're saying. I'm just saying, like, I think that's a counter argument to it.
I agree that that is a a decent counter argument, but as you had mentioned, it's unearned. That it doesn't. It,
Oh, it's
Woody,
definitely Bo Peep.
right? Yeah, Woody is so defined by never giving up on his kid. Even in Toy Story 1, then Woody and Bo Peep, talk about this multiple times. But when Woody is giving this whole speech to all the different toys, and he says, like the important thing is that we're there for Andy when he needs us. And then Bo ends up having to remind him of that later on when Woody feels like he is being uh, relegated to a secondary toy. And that, Bo Peep is like, hey, remember, we need to be there for Andy when he needs us. That's the important thing. And and yeah, so and Bo Peep has gone on her whole journey, and I think that that is actually really really interesting and fun to see how a toy can live, that kind of life. And I want Woody and Bo Peep to be together, and I get that it is hard to have those two things because they are so contrary to each other.
Yeah.
But it's just it is so ingrained in who Woody is that he would never give up on his kid that
And
I can't get over that.
and that's the thing, is that it's also, as much as it is an act of selflessness by trying to, get these kids into, like, get these toys into the hands of different children, he also is making a selfish decision. And you can argue that Bo Peep is living a very selfish life at this point, that she's
Yes.
just doing things to make herself feel good, and that she's ultimately, she kind of got bitter and resentful over the loss of her kid, of, like, what happened with her? Like, did she accidentally get donated? Is that it?
No, she didn't accidentally get donated.
I can't remember.
Yeah, Andy's sister Bonnie, not Bonnie. What's her name? Oh dear, now I can't remember the Andy's sister's name. But anyway,
Molly?
Molly. Yes, thank you. Yeah, Molly said that she didn't need Bo Peep anymore because Bo Peep was designed to be a lamp, a nightlight.
Oh, right. Okay.
Um,
Okay.
and so Molly was just like, "Oh, I don't need it anymore. So yeah, you can sell it, fine." And then it went to some other house, and now there's this whole there's a short film on Disney Plus, as far as I know, exclusive to Disney Plus, called Lamp Life, which goes over what happened to Bo Peep in the
Mm,
interim.
mm.
And I did watch that, and it's fine. I don't know. Like, you just basically get to see Bo Peep being like abused by household after household.
Right. Right.
As to like why she's missing her bonnet and why her arm is broken, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's why she's off on her own, because she didn't want to be abused like that anymore. Which
Yeah.
is, yeah, that's again, I think that her story works really well. I think that the story of Gabby Gabby, absolutely amazing. I love the play that we get with Gabby Gabby being obsessed with, I need to be, loved by a kid, that there's no greater joy in life than that.
Yeah.
The fact that that's a villain is actually really interesting, because she's doing everything, including these nefarious things, in order to get what Woody, sees as the ultimate good, the ultimate goal of life. And so then that's why, again, when he leaves Bonnie at the end, then it kind of undoes that. And it's like, oh,
It
so Gabby
does.
Gabby is just like, she's just evil. Like,
There's
there's no...
there's a tension going on in this film, and it's essentially that, is a toy, what is the purpose of a toy? Right? That seems to be the central question. And the and at least for Bo Peep, if you look at this film and you say it's really about that, this film is exploring the question of divorce, then it's like, imagine it this way: Bo Peep has a pretty good marriage, but then it just kind of fizzles out, and then both people become different people over time, or at least one of them becomes a different person over time. There's not really anger or resentment. It just kind of like, blows away, just fades away. But then she tries to put herself out there again. She's on all the dating apps. She gets into like short-term relationships, and it's like, that's a bum. That's another bum. Oh, that was awful. That was terrible. And it's like a lot of people who are middle-aged who are trying to date, whether they've been married before or not. It's like, not I'll be careful here, but many of them, there's a reason for that. Right? That they're maybe not that good in a relationship. Some of them, it's not their fault at all.
Right.
But I'm saying that she basically goes out there and has bad experiences, and then just gives up on it entirely. But then you've kind of got this I don't know, this
weird romantic tension between Woody and Bo Peep, which I love the fact that they have that relationship. But if you're trying to talk about, how Bo Peep can be off on her own without a kid, then it's kind of weird to then end with like, oh yeah, Woody and Bo Peep are together and they're like a couple. And it's like, what? That I don't understand what the movie is trying to say here.
No, because I think that it is very confused, because it does seem to be exploring that question of divorce through these toys. But then it gets all messy, when it gets into that whole thing of then saying, oh, but we're going to abandon the metaphor or the allegory here. And we're now just going to get into literally the question of romance and a relationship. And then these two can end up together. So then it's kind of a weird thing of, they're both starting over and going, we've both had these like failed relationships, like that came to natural conclusions. And what do we do now? And you know what I mean? Andy's
then it becomes this story of two divorcees
yes,
coming together.
Yes.
Which is a fine story, but it doesn't work at all with the rest of the film.
But then it gets all undone because you're like, wait, but I thought that it was supposed to be metaphorically working out this question, not literally working out this question.
Yeah, that's why I have so many issues with this ending, because there are many issues with it, not just, the character issues, character consistency issues, but yes, also that, where,
because then like, isn't that them being selfish to some degree? That is it actually the right thing for them to do? And it just kind of seems like a weird thing of, I think it's Bo Peep, because she's become so damaged, and as much as she insists that she's healthy and she's living her best life and she's really happy, she's ultimately really damaged, and she is unhappy, and she is unwilling to ever try to have that kind of relationship again. And the thing is, because wouldn't the easy solution be that she just hops on into the RV with everyone else,
and I think that would have been
together?
Yeah, that would be a very, very it was probably too happy for Pixar to go for.
Yes.
But that would be a very satisfying conclusion, to have Woody and Bo Peep be together, and maybe I don't know, maybe if I'm trying to think of like who could like take on that mantle of what Bo Peep had, kind of established. Like maybe Duke Kaboom, right? Then he could have been like, hey, that was really great that you guys helped out Gabby Gabby. Maybe I can help out with that too. Like Duke Kaboom and the tiny police officer.
Yeah.
Those two could have gone off and done what Woody and Bo Peep do at the actual end of the movie. And I'm like, so you had other options, and I think that it would have been more satisfying just to have, and even if the idea is that Bo Peep has to stay hidden, for that, then that could have been interesting at the very least. Or that, I don't know, like she could have like stayed in the attic, and then Woody would have joined her in the attic. Right?
Oh, she would have hated that life, though, right?
Yeah,
she already spent years of her life in that antique shop.
That's true.
Where she wasn't able to do anything, and
I guess my frustration here is that I want to be careful here. I feel like Woody is making so many sacrifices.
Yes.
And Bo Peep is making none.
I agree. Bo Peep is really selfish.
Yeah,
she really is.
That's why I come to resent Bo Peep at the end of this movie, because I'm like, oh yeah, I was so excited. Everything about this movie is something that should have worked really, really well for me. It's got carnivals. I love amusement parks and rides and all that. The antique shop with the ventriloquist dummies, awesome. So great. You've got the villain who shares the same objective as Woody, like fantastic. You've got this, you've got Forky, trying to decide whether he's trash or a toy. I think that's really fun. And then and you bring back Bo Peep. I'm like, great. I wanted, to see Bo Peep and Woody get back together. But then they just ruined it.
Yeah, no, I hear you. But I think the thing is that sort of from a values standpoint, then saying that, because I'm sure, like, there's no way that this was not an intentional thing that was going on, of thinking about divorce and this being a metaphor for divorce, and that there are so many women in particular who have ended up in this position of, having failed marriages, and often, like, I don't know, I'm not going to give a percentage, but many times, they were very unhappy in the marriage, and it wasn't really their fault, right? Like, just being married to a bad dude. And then trying to say, but I want to be a wife and I want to have a family and I want to do all this, and it's just not working. It's just not working. So then it's just saying, you know what, like I'm gonna just go out there and I'm gonna live my best life and I'm gonna be independent and I don't need a man to define me and I'm gonna be happy, right? And
Yeah.
that's ultimately what she's doing. She's made this decision of she doesn't want a kid. She doesn't want to be in that kind of relationship anymore. So then the thing is that, like, the problem there is that if you criticize that, then people are going to say, oh, so you're saying that a woman's role is to be married and to have children and to be a wife and mother. And if she's independent, then that's monstrous and selfish. And then I'm going, well, no, but that's why I think it's probably not the best metaphor to use toys and their relationship with children to explore the question of divorce. Like, I think I think the question that's being explored here, but I think it's the wrong question for Toy Story to explore.
Right. Yes. Yeah, I agree. And then you also have this issue of, as we had mentioned, of, Woody and Bo Peep being together at the end. And, I don't know, like that again kind of like conflicts with
That's
this
why
whole
I'm saying that
message.
it's so
And
dumb
that,
to even introduce that as the central question, to turn
yeah.
the relationship of a toy to a child into a metaphor for spouses, and then when that relationship ends, to turn it into a metaphor for divorce. I'm going,
Yeah.
that's really a bad idea for Toy Story.
Yeah. And if you were going to go with that, then having Woody leave Bo Peep at the end would have made more sense.
It would have.
Even though like that isn't, oh, they're not together, then it would have made more sense with the message that this film is trying to get across.
But the
uh,
message seems to be it is okay to be selfish and to abandon a bad relationship. That if you're
right.
ultimately just going to be stuck in the back of a closet getting dusty, getting, these like dust bunnies on you, and there's a lot of middle-aged married people who feel that way, who feel like they don't care about me, they don't value me, they don't think about me, they don't want to spend time with me, and I'm just like wasting away my entire life and I could be out there doing fun things, but he doesn't want to do those things or she doesn't want to do those things. And so the solution in the film seems to be, then dump his ass. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I'm going, like, okay, if that's the theme that you want to explore, that's fine, but it's probably not the best theme to use in Toy Story, a Pixar movie.
Yes.
Because it
Yeah.
sets up, to me, it's sort of setting up it's like a straw man argument of, do you know what I mean? It's setting up this target that you're now trying to hit, and you're going, but that's not, like, is that what a toy's role is in relationship to a child, right?
Mhm.
Is it really, does it work as a metaphor? Like, maybe it's not a straw man. I apologize. It's really, it's a faulty analogy. I think that's what it is.
Yes.
They're false equivalents that they don't
Yeah.
work as analogs for each other. But they painted themselves into a corner because they kept having all of this language that was so imbued with significance over, becoming independent and single and moving on from these bad failed relationships, and you don't need a kid to make you happy in life, and there's other ways of living your best life. And because the whole thing gets undone with the entire theme of Forky and the entire theme of Gabby and the three films prior. So then you go, this is just such a stupid theme to explore.
Thank you. That is exactly what I'm saying, is that it doesn't work with the rest of Toy Story. And even with the story of Forky, that it just it just doesn't work. They don't blend.
It doesn't blend. And that's why when you're saying, oh, but what about him and Bo Peep getting, how do we resolve that? I'm going, it doesn't get resolved. It's because it's a bloody mess of a theme. That theme is idiotic and doesn't belong in the movie at all. Like, I really like the movie because I'm like, hey, this is a solid like Toy Story movie. Like visually, it looks great. You've got fun jokes in there. You've got some exciting sequences and all of that. But every time we got into that whole conversation where everything's, heavy laden with significance for like divorce, and I was going, what are they doing? It just feels like a bunch of screenwriters who've all had these bad divorces and are now like, maybe I'll get a sports car. And it's just like, what are you doing writing a kids movie if you want to talk about that? If you want to do that, like just like go make a Marriage Story on
Right.
Netflix. You know what I mean?
I was
Go
going to
make
say,
that
I was
damn
going to
movie.
make that comparison.
Just go make that damn movie, like, which has been made so many times before. Like,
Yeah.
and that's fine if that's where your interests are. But I'm
Yeah.
like, stop trying to take like this slanted approach and to use Toy Story as a metaphor for this thing that really doesn't belong in there. Because isn't that messy for kids as well? That shouldn't children still be the focus of Pixar movies as much as they're for adults and families and people of all ages? Shouldn't this ultimately be things that do make sense to children? Because I don't know how children react to that at the end. They're like, oh, so now they don't have a kid, they're lost toys, but they're happy, so ultimately my toys don't want to be with me, or if I don't play with my toys enough, they're going to have this existential crisis and they'd rather be out there lost in the world than in my closet. Like, that
Yeah.
seems pretty brutal to lay on a kid.
Yeah, I'm just so frustrated by this film.
I know you are.
And yeah, and it's interesting because there is a little bit of this discussion of like toys being forgotten, toys get lost all the time, and Pixar already did that story.
Yeah.
With Inside Out.
Uh-huh.
With Bing Bong being,
Yeah.
just forgotten. And it's
Yeah.
so sad and it works so well.
Yeah.
And then to have them be revisiting it here and it just doesn't work nearly as well. And it's in a Toy Story movie, which doesn't make any sense. It's okay.
It's a Toy Story movie that's essentially exploring the question of it's best for some toys to not have a kid.
Right. Yeah.
And you're like, what the F is that?
Yeah, and again, Toy Story 3, with that, you had the daycare, and it was like, oh yeah, we can stay here, and all
Totally.
these different kids play with us and whatever, which seems to be what the park scene in Toy Story 4 is doing.
Yeah.
But for some reason in Toy Story 3, the daycare is horrible. It's the worst idea imaginable. But Bo Peep seems to love the playground in Toy Story 4.
Yep.
So I don't get it. Like
That's
again,
what I'm saying, is that it's a mess. It completely that entire everything to do with Bo Peep's storyline and her worldview, her perspective is so out of sync with everything that we've seen with the 3 previous Toy Story movies and everything else in Toy Story 4. If you just removed her storyline entirely, then these 4 movies would work so well together. There would be this consistency to all 4 of them if you just extract that. And it just feels like somebody was insisting on fitting this square peg into a round hole of like, I swear that somebody whoever like, or a group of people, because there's like 8 people who are like story contributors to this, have gone through a divorce or are going through a divorce, and we're trying to, and like, you know what I mean? They're having wine with their girlfriends or like beers with their dudes, and they're just like, like, you're better off without him. You can go out and do this. And they're like, I'm going to make Bo Peep say that.
Right, yeah. So it is interesting because from what I read, then Toy Story 4 was the first time that Pixar opened up the Pixar Story Group, or whatever they're called, to women. And to have this be the result, and this be the discussion that we're talking about.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that ahead of time.
Yeah, I don't know. I do think that there is a little bit of that, because I am all for political correctness and equality. All of that, I think, is important. But I think that this film goes a little bit too far in that direction.
Well, isn't it just that this is such a bad metaphor for Toy Story?
It is a terrible metaphor. Yeah, and you've got, I don't know,
because they're getting you to argue with something that shouldn't be argued with within Toy Story. So then it's like setting it up, going like, well, if ultimately you're just gonna like not have much of a life, or you're gonna get abused, or it's gonna be a bunch of crappy relationships afterwards, or it's like, he died, or you know what I mean, like you get a divorce, like this happened, that happened, you get replaced by somebody else, all this stuff. Then it's like, then you don't need to be miserable for the rest of your life. You don't need to sit in an antique shop, metaphorically, doing nothing, just marking time. Get out there, figure out who you are now. And it's like, that's all true. But none of that fits in Toy Story. That you can, like, you can make that, like, I'm saying, I don't have an issue with the theme. I have an issue with the theme in Toy Story.
Absolutely. Yes. And honestly, I don't have an issue with itself, but it doesn't blend with what Woody and the gang is going through. And so even if you wanted to, talk about everything that Bo Peep has decided and have this interesting counter to what Woody and everybody is going through, then yeah, that could be really interesting. But then you're trying to bring Woody and the gang into it, and it's just like, well, but no, they're contradictions. You can't put them together.
Exactly. It is a contradiction, and that it messes with everything. Because even then, like, if you start following this through, then you go, oh, so the relationship then is metaphorical for, is like, it's an extended metaphor. So it's an allegory for, finding a life partner, getting married and whatever. Then you go, so poor Gabby, all she needed was breast implants, and then she could get a dude. You know what I mean? Like, that's effectively what it comes down to. It's like, there's something physically wrong with her, and nobody's interested. And then it's like, well, let's like get this thing. And then she's like, all right, I'm out there in the world now. And then it's like, hey, you did it, girlfriend. But it's like, wait, is that the theme that you want to explore? Do you really want to say there's something wrong with you, and that's why you're not married? Is that the theme that we want to have?
Yeah, I mean, you do have that moment where even the girl that Gabby has been pining over for so long, once Gabby is fixed, then she's still discarded. So it's like, oh, see, even being fixed didn't help you.
Right.
But then, yeah, it does help when, she is introduced to this other kid. So even if it doesn't work for the one person that you're interested in, there'll be somebody else who likes what you were fixed.
Out there. Just keep putting it. Yeah, but exactly. But it's like, it's saying there really is something wrong with you, and you really are unlovable unless you have some kind of cosmetic surgery.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, maybe it's not cosmetic, but it's just like, what's wrong with her laugh? I can't marry that person. What's wrong with her voice? I love you so much. Oh!
Oh dear. Okay, so there's one other like minor detail here on the point of equality and everything, and this I didn't notice the first time that I watched it, but it did. I don't know. I noticed it this second time, which is the girl who's lost, right? And then Gabby helps her. Then that girl goes and talks to a female police officer. Which is, cool. And then you find out that another female police officer is talking with that girl's parents.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And then it is the male police officer who pulls over the RV.
Okay.
And so it's interesting that the two police officers who are helping to reunite this kid are both female, and the one who is, doing this bad thing of writing a ticket or whatever for the father is the only male police officer. I don't know. I'm just like, I don't know. It feels like a little awkward to me.
I didn't even think that they were police officers. I thought they were security guards. Then he's actually a cop. And I didn't see his role as being negative. It's like, legitimately pull that thing over. This guy's going to kill pedestrians.
Yes.
Please serve and protect. And he was doing a good job. Like, it wasn't him being a jerk. It was him protecting children and like families wandering around. Like,
right. Yeah. I just think that it kind of like falls into those stereotypes of, like the females always helping.
Yes.
And then the males always being...
women nurture and men punish. right?
Yes.
Like in
Yeah.
terms of like mothers and fathers, that the
Yeah.
mother is the nurturer, but the father is he's in charge of discipline.
Yeah. Again, that's a really minor note, and it's like it's not a
No,
big
I
deal.
think it's fair
Yeah.
to bring it up that there's something to that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think it's probably like fulfilling stereotypes that we have, not so much trying to
Right.
undo them,
Yes.
but fulfilling certain stereotypes that we have about the role of men and women.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, so, like, I've got to, but I want to finish on this question here before you add in whatever else you wanted to talk about with this. But so my big question is, so what is the purpose of a toy in the Toy Story universe? Because it's absolutely the it's it's the central question of this film.
Yes.
Like aside from the Bo Peep storyline, right? But
Mhm.
even that is still like dealing with the question. But Forky is absolutely exploring this, and then Gabby is absolutely exploring this, and even Woody with kind of being ignored and neglected, and but everything that he's doing with Forky, and then even with Gabby, it's all exploring the question of what is the role of a toy? Like
Right.
what's its purpose? And
Yeah.
it seems like the answer seems to be the purpose is to bring joy to a child, however big or small your role is. That is your purpose. So if
Yeah.
you are just like a supporting character in playing house, you're a supporting character in a tea party, sometimes you get invited and sometimes you don't, but you're never
Right.
sitting directly next to the kid. Do you know what I mean? Like
Right.
whether you are like, little army men who's, you're going to just be part of like an overall play scene, or, you're the potato heads who have got their own little place. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you're Rex, you're going to be the villain, even though you're a softie.
Right. Yeah.
Like that, no matter how big or small your role is, your job is to play that role and to be as selfless as possible and to find fulfillment from bringing joy to a particular child. And when that child grows up, then you hopefully find another child to bring joy to their life, even for just a few moments. And that seems to be it. And that Forky resists this, but ultimately accepts it and embraces
Mhm.
it, realizing that he is trash to Bonnie, that the way he
Right.
feels about trash is the way she feels about him,
Yes.
like warm and whatever else and
Yeah.
comforting. And that Gabby seems to really get this. And
Mhm.
she feels unfulfilled until she accomplishes that purpose. So what I'm saying, if you just ignore the thing with Bo Peep entirely,
Yeah.
then there's so much consistency to this.
Yes. Yeah. No,
And
absolutely.
and that's where like I really like the movie, and I think it fits so well. If we could get a cut where there's nothing to do with Bo Peep, I think I'd be happy,
That'd be really interesting.
because I wouldn't, like, I don't have kids, and if I ever have kids, like, that's like the one part of it where I'm just like, I wouldn't really want them like watching that part of it, because it seems to undo everything else. That it's like, I think it
Yes.
can be confusing thematically, and even for a child it can be confusing. They're like, oh, like if they're pretty like mature, they'd be like, so it's selfish of me to keep this thing, but you know what I mean?
Right.
Like
Yeah. Oh, I
that.
shouldn't keep these toys in a drawer. I should, if I'm not using them, I should donate them or something. I don't know.
But not even donate them. That this toy would be happier just like out in the wild
Right.
with
Yeah.
no kid at
Yeah.
all. That's the problem with Bo Peep. It's not that she's
Yes.
saying my job is to bring as much joy to all of the children who come and visit the carnival. She seems to be avoiding kids in general.
Yeah. Yeah.
That
Absolutely.
she's got,
I think
like I
she
say,
rides around in a skunk.
yeah, that's what, yeah, like to scare off everybody, to keep them away from her. But it's essentially her sports car with her like, divorcee friend or her single friend who's like, we don't need those people.
Right.
Her
Yes.
sassy cop friend, little
Yeah.
cop friend, who's got her own little apartment, her mini apartment in the city. She's got her condo, how she like comes down the like the Polly Pocket type character, right?
Yeah.
She's got her own place, and Bo Peep's got her car and all of that, and it's like, if you follow that through, then you're like, so Bo Peep is happiest without any kid at all.
Right.
And I go, that's the part where I'm going, that I don't think is exactly what you want to be doing as far as a kid's movie, to say, hey, it's really selfish of you to have this toy, and it's mean of you to give the toy to somebody else who's going to play with it, or even a bunch of kids who are going to play with it. We need to allow it to just go independent into the world and do whatever it wants to do. Yeah. Like, that's so weird for Toy Story.
Yep. And again, the contradiction of that being, everything that Bo Peep is, her story is about, but then her and the little Polly Pocket officer, toys is like, that happens, like, oh, this is the guy that you were telling me about. So, like, clearly, like,
right.
Bo Peep still has feelings for Woody and everything. And I was just like, so again, you can't really have both.
No,
you can't.
It's such a faulty analogy that it just falls apart. I've said it so many times before, in part because I've done this like with my own academic research, but metaphors always fall apart when you look at them too closely. But this is a metaphor that not only falls apart, like when you look at it too closely, it's just on its surface, it falls apart, because you're going, you can't have it both ways. You can't set this up as saying a toy's relationship to a child is the analog for a person's relationship with their spouse. But then you also then introduce this romantic thing in the film, so then there is no metaphor anymore. Then you're just exploring relationships, and then you're going, wait, you metaphorically divorced a kid to literally marry Woody? Like, that makes no sense. It doesn't fit, and I don't understand how this happened in this movie, because everything else in it, like, and you said that, like, Lasseter had, like, because he had allegations. I don't really know. I know that it happened. I don't know what the allegations were or what happened with it. But you said that they cut like 75% of what he contributed.
Yeah, they rewrote, like, they threw out 75% of the script and rewrote it. So I don't know what the 25% is that was held on to.
I can't imagine that it was all of that stuff with Bo Peep, but I mean, maybe it was. But Lasseter was so, like, he was the central contributor to the first three films, was he not?
Yeah. And because he was writing this story as the story about him and his wife, and it's like, well, I don't think he would have all these, confusing, like, all this confusing divorce metaphor stuff built into the film, because that doesn't work at all with what he was trying to do as a love story or a romantic comedy.
Yeah, no.
That's why I'm like, because that's what I was going into this film thinking, because I hadn't, I mean, I had heard that, like, it was 75% or whatever was thrown out, but I didn't hear that, they were completely changing the direction of this film, like, 100%. I thought they were still going to go with, a romantic comedy / love story angle.
Yeah.
And that I'm fine with. But yeah, it just
indeed.
I
hear you.
All right. So I just want to quickly mention one other thing. One other inconsistency in character within this film, and that is with Buzz Lightyear.
Oh, I was going to say, it's got to be Buzz Lightyear. It's got to be Buzz Lightyear.
What in the world happened here?
I think he hit his head.
Honestly, like, okay, Toy Story 1, yeah, he didn't really get how toys work and everything. Toy Story 2, sure, he says delicious hot schmoes instead of delicious hot s'mores, right? But then when he goes to Al's Toy Barn and he finds the other Buzz, and he's like, was I really this delusional? Clearly he is not that delusional anymore.
Right.
He has some sense of who he is. Yes.
He matured, and then we went right back to Buzz Lightyear straight out of the box.
Yeah. What happened?
I'm so glad you brought that up because he became so dumb. I've brought it up so many times before, but it's like the Simpsons clip show of like somebody who writes it. It's like, like here's a question. Like, I think Homer gets dumber every year. And it's like, that's not a question. But it's like Buzz Lightyear just all of a sudden became incredibly dumb.
Yeah, I don't get what happened there. Who wrote those lines? Who thought, oh yeah, that sounds like Buzz? Buzz from Toy Story 3 moving on into Toy Story? No!
He It doesn't fit at all. I will not argue with you in the least on that. I feel like there's like generally speaking, this film, it is a cast that doesn't want to be an ensemble film.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
That you've got all of these like amazing characters who've been so well established, even ones like who are just supporting characters, but they've been so well established, and then they get hardly used at all. And then when they are being used, it's like it doesn't even make sense.
It's all these stereotypes that these characters are not. Like Ham at the beginning reaching for that coin, and it's like, but it's money. When has he ever cared about money? When has that been established? That's not him.
No.
The only moment that we get is, when his cork pops out in Toy Story 2, and then he goes, okay, nobody look until I get my cork back in.
Right.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's the only time when he seems to care about putting the money back in.
But that's just more his insides, right? Like,
right. Yeah. So I don't get why he's like, but it's money. What?
Yeah. And then, like, the one that like drove me crazy, I thought like Rex still had some good lines in this.
Yeah.
But like Mr. Potato Head, did we get one angry moment from him?
I don't think so. And I mean, to be fair, then Don Rickles did.
Yeah. That could be it. That
shortly after production started, so they basically had to just reuse dialogue from other movies. But
okay, that.
Yeah,
I'll give them a pass on that one.
Yeah, I agree. I'm like, I would have liked to have seen more of Mr. Potato Head, but I get that, you had some limitations there, especially if you threw out 75% of the script.
Yeah.
After he passed away. Then.
Yeah. But yeah, Buzz is a wreck, and all these other characters, like what's the Woody's like friend's name? The cowgirl.
Oh, Jessie.
Yeah, Jessie, even though she is like Bonnie's favorite-ish, has got like no role in this.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. Because I was going to say, what are you going to say about Jessie? She like didn't do, oh right, she didn't do anything.
That's what I'm saying, is that she's like Bonnie's favorite toy, or was. There's nothing to do with her feeling left behind, or her feeling hurt the way we had with Toy Story 1, with Woody being replaced by Buzz Lightyear. Like, even just one freaking joke would have been great of like, I've been replaced by a spork? You know what I mean? Like just like a googly eye, like, like I've been replaced by that thing. Like even one joke, one line would have been like helpful. Yes. But instead, she was just her normal Jessie self of just, everything is awesome.
I'm gonna, throw Woody around in the air as I hug him, and yeah, that was about it. Again, they all became these weird caricatures of who they were, and they were such well-established characters before.
One-dimensional in this movie, and the only Woody goes through a transformation here, but it's a portrait. It's not like a landscape. Do you know what I mean? It's got, like I said at the beginning, it's an ensemble cast, but it's not an ensemble film, and it's just frustrating because I feel like this would maybe work as like a, whatever, direct to video on demand kind of spin-off, but not canonical movie. Do you know what I mean? And you just kind of abandon the rest of them, and then you just say they're not important because they didn't even need to be on this trip at all.
Right. Yeah.
Like they did nothing. They did nothing in the entire movie.
Other than Buzz Lightyear constantly asking his inner voice.
Yeah. Like, because he doesn't understand what an inner voice is, so then he just assumes it's that because he's hit his head and he's gone stupid. So, but did he actually help in any way? It's it's sort of like with Indiana Jones and Raiders of the Lost Ark, like when like the whole thing of like, yeah, he actually contributed nothing. That like he did a lot of actions, but none of them were meaningful, and
Yeah.
nothing mattered anyway. That's essentially all the other toys in this.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
They have to get the RV back to
Right.
try to like buy some time. Like
Yeah.
they do that, but
Yeah, no, in general, they do nothing. They don't add anything to the film.
no.
We're supposed to be sad that Buzz and Woody are, parting ways when they've become such good friends, except that we didn't really get to see them
We
be
didn't
good
see their
friends in this
friendship.
film.
No, we didn't see their friendship at all in this film.
Yeah. And so I don't know what to make of this film. It is I never thought there would be a day when a Toy Story movie came out and I was just like, I don't want to watch that again. I don't need to own it. Like, that is a problem.
Agreed.
If one of the biggest Toy Story fans in the world, honestly, I don't, I, I am one of those people, and it's just, this doesn't work.
This is
It's
exactly, yeah.
not the same. It's not the same Toy Story that I grew up with. It's not the Toy Story that I love. And even though there are some moments which call back to that it falls apart so quickly, especially with that stupid ending.
Yes, that is exactly how I feel about Disney Star Wars movies.
Yes, I know.
And you fought me on that so much, but that is exactly
know.
like how I feel about it.
Yeah.
Is just like that's not a good thing for somebody
Right.
who really really loves the original films and then is going, I have issues like with so many different aspects of this and I don't even want to watch them. Like I haven't even seen the most recent one and I don't really plan on seeing it. Because I'm just like, I don't like what you've done with everything to do with this. And so I'm just done. Like it doesn't need to be a Star Wars discussion. I'm just saying that there's so many people who feel that way about what Disney has done with Star Wars.
Yeah.
And this really is one of those things would have been so much better if we just had Toy Story 3 and that was it.
Yes, absolutely. I don't, yeah. It's frustrating to me because Toy Story 4 did, critically, it did very, very well. Critics loved this movie.
Of course. How many critics are middle-aged and divorced?
Right.
That's what I'm saying is they're not going to look at this as children. They're looking at this going, yeah, it is good that I dumped my wife and married a bimbo and I now drive a convertible. Like,
right.
Like why would a critic like not like this movie? Because they're gonna see themselves in this. Like,
yeah. And I'm just like, yeah, I'm so annoyed at it. I'm so incredibly, livid about it. It is, oof.
I think rightfully so. Before we started talking, like I knew that the film was about divorce, and I was thinking, I'm like, that doesn't belong in there at all. I didn't know if that was your issue or not, but like I figured it was probably something to do with Woody and the fact that he goes off and does this kind of selfish thing, even though he's trying to tell himself that it's selfless.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, but I just think that it's that it's not even so much that what he does is wrong. It's that his character is put into a position that doesn't fit with what Toy Story has done.
Yes.
It's that they have contrived a scenario and contrived a problem that shouldn't be a problem to be addressed in these movies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that then giving this false solution to a faulty premise. Right? That's how the whole thing feels. It's just it's a faulty premise. It's a bad analogy to make. Yeah. And then your solution, it's like, I don't disagree with your solution. I disagree with your premise.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that it is all the, divorce overtones and everything that does really bother me because that's what makes it feel unearned to me and everything. Because you have this interesting discussion of, Forky being trash, and like he wants to be trash, but he is a toy. And then you have Woody, who is a toy but is treated like trash.
Yes. Yes.
And that's a very interesting dynamic. And to
So interesting.
have them switch places, I think could have worked.
If they explored that, if they fully explored it, that's the problem.
But but then the end feels like it's just Bo Peep steals Woody away. And it's like, well, then no, you're not doing what, what you think you're doing.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree, and that's where I feel disappointed, and that less could have been more. Not only like just like Toy Story would be better without this film, but if like, because they set up, like I say, like everything in this movie I like except for the Bo Peep storyline.
Right.
And so I really am interested in this question of Forky and the ontological question of what does it mean to be a toy, right? Like really ontological is what does it mean to be a human, but what does it mean to be a toy? Really interested in that. The reversal that you have that you explained so well of, Forky believes he's trash, but he's actually like being treated as a toy, and then Woody is actually a toy, but he's being treated like trash. All of this, it's like, yeah, it's a really interesting reversal that you're getting. And then Gabby, who was faulty to begin with, but she's never let go of the dream, and it's kind of turned her into a villainous character, but she's not ultimately villainous. That, she doesn't want to hurt other toys. She just wants to be whole. She wants to be healed. And you go, okay, like that makes a lot of sense. Of course you do. And that she seems fulfilled by the end of this. Like that makes a lot of sense. And this whole thing of like it's delightful the way a child can make anything into a toy. Yes. I love that. Like that whole idea with Forky and him working through those questions, but it could have gone deeper, and it doesn't. And instead you get this, it just veers off in this weird other direction. And I am so interested in how much of that was in Lasseter's original script compared to what we ended up with.
Yeah, I agree entirely, and I think that one possible partial explanation is that Annie Potts, who plays Bo Peep, had been, already like she had already been told that she was going to have a very large role in this film, and everybody was excited that she was coming back, and so then, once you drop the whole romantic comedy aspect and you start going into a traditional Toy Story movie, then it's just, but now we have to kind of figure out how to fit Bo Peep in. Why has she been gone for so long? And all of this. And I think that that's kind of where it started to get muddled.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I think that you could explore, this whole idea of Woody. It's just so confused. I don't know what else to say, but it's just so confused. Yeah. And I would love to read the original script and figure out how this could have been a romantic comedy.
I agree. Because that would have been interesting. Like, one of the things I think it's Toy Story 3 where we get Michael Keaton as Ken. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. One of that is maybe my favorite part of all of the Toy Story movies is him and Barbie together, him as this I don't know, metrosexual guy who's just so vain and narcissistic, and he's so into fashion and his appearance, and he's just the perfect match for Barbie. But their whole when they first see each other, do you know what I mean?
We were made for each other. It's just like, oh man, this is fantastic.
It's so funny. I love that entire thing so much. It is so whimsical and charming and delightful and just patently hilarious that the Barbie and Ken, of course, right?
Right.
That it shows that the Toy Story universe can do romantic comedy because it's funny, but it's also romantic. And so it's like, I wish that we actually had something like that, but instead it's not even a romantic comedy. No, it's not even a little bit. No. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, I don't know either. It's they seemingly completely abandoned that idea of it being a romantic comedy, but we're still like, oh, since we originally said that it has to be that, then I guess we have to have Bo Peep and Woody together at the end.
Yeah, but it
And
was unearned. Like
right,
it just
yeah,
came out of nowhere. They
yeah,
obviously liked each other, but it wasn't like leading up to this. Do you know what I mean? The
yeah,
whole conversation was not so much about how much they love each other. It's what do you do when a kid no longer loves you? And
yeah,
that was like it was like that question, that question, that question, that question, and then oh, we should be together. It's like
right.
that didn't follow that.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why like again, Toy Story 4 was, supposed to be something very different and it became another Toy Story film,
Yeah, yeah.
except with these added elements that are not a Toy Story film, which makes it not a Toy Story film.
I agree.
But it's trying to be a Toy Story film.
I hesitate to do this because I feel like it's often not a fair criticism that like we can do better as critics generally speaking, but I'm gonna do it. It really feels like fan fiction.
Yes, I agree.
Like
Yeah.
and I'm somebody who like I feel like that's a lazy criticism of something that you don't like, but I think like we've done like probably an hour or so far without invoking that term, and
Right.
I think it is a fair criticism is that it doesn't feel like a Toy Story movie. It's undoing all of the themes and logic of this entire universe, but it's attempting to do Toy Story, but to
Yeah,
take
it
it in a
doesn't have the
direction that's
stakes that the other Toy Story films
yeah,
have. It's all these shallow depictions of these characters that we know so well. Yeah.
exactly. And yeah, it's like what fan fiction generally speaking does is that it's unsanctioned, so it will break rules that have already been established,
Mhm.
and it's like for wish fulfillment and for, like delight of the writer and the reader. It's like, ooh, I'm going to get them to do this even though it's well established that that's not who these characters are.
Yeah.
Right? That's what fan fiction does, and that's why it remains fan fiction. And it's like you can't sell this stuff to the original studio, to the original holder of the intellectual property, that it's like because they're not going to go for it.
Yeah.
uh, that it exists outside of canon, and that's how much of this film feels. It
Hmm.
doesn't feel real. It feels like fan fiction, and that's
Absolutely.
disappointing. The and it's sort of like how I feel about Star Wars though, where I look at this and I say visually I love it.
Right. Yeah.
Visually it looks great.
Yeah.
That's how I feel about the new Star Wars films. I've always said that it's like I can say nice things. Like visually they're spectacular looking. They look
Yep.
great.
They
This
sound
movie,
great.
yeah, yeah, look and sound. That exactly in this movie, the look, the visual effects, the sound design, both are excellent.
Yep.
So that part's great.
Yep.
There's some really good comedy in here. There's
Yeah,
some jokes that are
absolutely.
really funny. I
Yeah.
love Rex's line of "the panic is attacking me."
Absolutely. The
That's a
fact that
great
that
line.
was, yeah, that was my quote when the first trailer was released.
Right.
Because I loved it so much. I was like, yes, that is perfect, Rex. And
That's
I
such a
feel
Rex
that
line.
while watching the trailer.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. I love that line. I love everything with Gabby Gabby. I love Duke Kaboom. I think he's a
He's
great
terrific.
character.
Yeah.
Played by Keanu Reeves, of course, who is Canadian, so
Yes.
it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's really good. Yes, I Canada.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, that's great. And Jordan Peele and Keegan Michael Key, is that it? Did I get it right?
Yes,
I always trip over his name.
I believe so, yeah.
But they're both great in this. I love the part where like they see like the plush toy that's been ripped in half by the cat, and they're like,
Yes.
"Is that what we look like inside? There's
Yeah.
so much fluff." And then like they go and see that character inside the pinball machine, and they're like, "Hey, I saw your better half over there." Like
Yes.
that's funny because it's like his better half, like literally it's the better half of him, like the
Right.
greater half of him. Like that's a good joke. I like that.
Yes. Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, and on the note of those characters, I like them, but I think that their cutaways are they don't quite work for me. Like okay, here's what we're gonna do to get the key. and then they, show them
Oh,
attacking the woman.
that's a
I'm like,
super interesting part of the movie, and I wondered what you thought about that because that is not Toy Story.
it's not. It's really not. And so I'm like, okay, well, whatever. Like, I guess it's kind of funny. And then they do it again, and it's like
And
the
then
exact same
again,
thing. And I'm like, okay. And then the third time where it's like this long story, and like, I don't. Why did you pad the runtime with that? Like, because it's
uh-huh.
so long. You see the woman close up the shop, drive all the way home, have a bath, eat dinner, like all of this stuff, and then have they just appear like over her menacing, and I'm just like, what is happening? This is not Toy Story.
That's in the film where I went, ooh, this feels like fan fiction.
Right.
Really, really good fan fiction.
Yeah,
Right. So that's
yeah,
why I'm saying that it's not a disparaging term. I don't necessarily mean it as a disparaging term, but I'm
yeah.
going, it could be well written and incredibly funny,
Mhm.
but it's not fitting with the tropes and the rules of Toy Story films. So Toy
Yeah,
Story films have never done cutaway gags before. We've
right.
never seen that. And then to
Yeah,
get it in the fourth movie,
yeah,
ugh. In the second one, okay. And then if you
right,
do it again in the third and then in the fourth, then sure. Then you go kind of because usually the original is its own thing.
right.
But to introduce it in the fourth movie, then I go, here's the problem is that it's really funny and it really worked for me from a level of comedy. But then, so I'm going, and it's kind of what you had said before. If this was just a standalone film, if this wasn't Toy Story 4, if this is just Toy
Yes.
Story,
Yeah,
then it'd be great.
yeah,
But the thing is that if you've watched the other three films and you have an appreciation, then you go, okay, you're changing the narrative rules because there have been narrative rules that have been established within Toy Story, which is that everything has to be grounded and realistic. We don't get
mhm.
dream sequences and we don't have
Well,
cutaway.
there is a dream
Oh,
sequence in
Toy Story
two,
2. Yeah, in
and
Toy
and
Story
there
2.
and at the beginning of Toy Story 3, then we get this whole sequence which seemingly is like, this uh, with the train and Woody and trying to stop the train, and like it's in the
Yes,
desert,
yes.
but then it's revealed to be like that's what Andy sees. And so it's like,
Yeah.
okay, that's okay. But
Daydream sequence. Yes, you do
yeah,
have that. But I guess what I'm saying is like you don't have dream sequences in that, you know, this stuff doesn't count and it's not real. And
yeah,
so the thing is that that's where I'm saying that it becomes a problem where you go,
yeah,
so now I can't necessarily trust the stuff that I see on screen, that you're
yes,
now making me doubt what I see on screen as being like what's actually happening, that I
yeah,
don't know if it's a cutaway gag anymore. So
yeah.
that, and the problem with cutaway gags is that that often undoes suspense.
Right. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I think that could have, at the very least, been done better to better indicate that we were into a non-reality from the
That's all
get-go.
they had to do. They could have
Yeah.
kept it, but they could have just said, they could have been narrating it. Okay, here's what
Right.
we're going to do. We're going to like imagine this,
Yeah.
right? We're going
Or
to sit
just
on the
have
shelf.
like a sort of, sound effect as it like,
Yeah, yeah, even that
a
too.
wipe or something, and then that would have been fine.
But
But
they're
no.
definitely trying to fool the audience the first
Yes.
time. And then the second time, it's like, ooh, are they doing it again? It's like they do it again. And the third time, you know exactly what they're doing. So then they extend it out. And they're
Yeah.
like, the joke is going to be how long it takes for us to deliver the payoff to
Right.
this. Because we
Yeah.
know where this is going to end. We know for sure they're going to jump out and attack her.
Yeah.
Um,
And then the ending, like during the credits, that moment is, I don't know. If you liked the earlier ones, then I guess you'd like this end one.
right.
But if you didn't, then it's just like, really, this is like one of the last things that we see is,
Yep.
Ducky and Bunny growing to a gigantic size in their daydreams and
Yeah.
shooting
Yeah.
lasers out of their eyes.
Yeah.
And then having Duke Kaboom, I think it was Duke Kaboom who was like, "Can you really shoot lasers
Right.
out of your eyes?" I'm like, "What? What do you mean?"
Right. Yep. No, I know. That's the thing. And that's where I'm saying, like, I like it, but I feel like it would work well as a, non-canonical version of Toy Story on Disney Plus, where
Yes.
it's direct to video on demand. Like a lot of Disney sequels that are it's not canonical. It doesn't fit with like the original, but we're going to do just different zany things with like these side characters or whatever. Especially if you gave these dudes like a short film, or you give them a standalone film where it's a little side story that you have with these guys, where you could do the cutaway gags in theirs, but you don't do it in Toy Story.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. They you have so you have this whole universe that you could explore. Toys come to life when nobody's watching, right? That's the universe that you've set up. And you keep going back to Woody and the Gang, which is great because we love Woody and the Gang. But for Toy Story 4, maybe you could have done something different. Maybe we could have had a story about Ducky and Bunny and, Gabby Yabby and even bring Bo Peep into it.
Yeah.
And that could have been really interesting to have it just be its own thing.
And then you're freed up from a narrative standpoint, because then you're not dealing with a lot of the established characters anymore, the central characters. So then you can start doing things from like tonally, you can do things differently. You can do things from a narrative standpoint differently. You could do cutaway gags, and then you go, because we're now doing something different. But when it's a continuation of what we've had with the previous 3 films, then it's like, okay, you have now spent something like, I don't know what it comes out to, but like 5-6 hours or so establishing all of these rules of what the narrative does, what it does and what it doesn't do. And now you're going to surprise us with things. Then, because I feel like their justification is, but it's funny. And it's like, yeah, but does it fit? Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do feel like part of that, I have nothing against Key and Peele, but I do feel like it's a little bit of, just like, oh, we have Key and Peele, let's put their style of humor in here.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really fit.
Yeah. That's true. That is true. It's definitely like with their show, Key and Peele, that the way they play off of each other in that way. Yeah. Anything else that you wanted to talk about with this?
I think that's it. I feel
better?
I do. Again, like I have no plans to see this film again. I want to pretend like it doesn't exist.
Well, you can do that. That's what I'm doing with new Star Wars.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm just fine.
Yeah.
Like up here, like, hey, I'm fine. Everybody else is trying to reconcile how do these movies fit with the original, and how does it not undo the significance of like Vader's sacrifice and all that. And they're trying to like do all these like, mental like contortions to try to make it fit. And I'm just going like, do, right, because I'm not worried.
Yeah, and I think that's the interesting thing, because I haven't heard or seen as many people. I mean, obviously Star Wars is a much bigger thing, but I haven't seen the same kind of reaction to Toy Story 4 that I have, where it's like, this breaks with what the original 3 are.
Well, let's get this to go viral. Watch this, people, share it. Like,
absolutely.
Get a conversation going. We need a hashtag. We need a hashtag, people.
Yeah, Toy Story Bore.
Yeah, Toy Story Bore or Trash Story 4.
Yeah. Either or, I don't care.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I think that we've had a good discussion on this, and I appreciate what you've said. And I feel like I guess like I'm far more on your side. I don't really have big issues with the movie because it's not as dear to me as it is to you. I have no issues with how you feel about it, though. I would have an issue if somebody said like, this fits so well in the series, then I'd be like, stop, you're embarrassing yourself. You don't know what you're talking about. If somebody tried to defend this as fitting with the other 3 Toy Story movies, then I would go like, no, it really doesn't. And like, especially that Bo Peep thing, that doesn't fit at all. But because
it could have been its own story, could have been, this whole thing, but it doesn't fit as Toy Story 4.
Right. Do you know if there's any like plans for Toy Story in general, because it's such a big franchise that they've been doing some shorts on Disney Plus with Forky? I know they've done that.
Yeah, they've got Forky Asks a Question, which they've been releasing new episodes like every week.
Are
I've
they
watched.
still releasing them?
I think so.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think so, but I don't know. They might have run out of them by now. Even still, there's like, I don't know, a bunch of them.
Right.
Um, and then they also did have the Bo Peep Lamp Life short film. Um, and but moving in terms of like bigger projects, I don't think that they have any other plans at the moment. Um, I know that I had mentioned on a previous podcast that like currently Pixar has said that they have no plans for any
More
sequels
sequels. Yeah.
for anything moving
Yeah.
forward, which is good. Um, but yeah, I mean, if this is how, Toy Story goes out, then I'm just kind of like, really?
Yeah, I know because I feel like the problem, see, and this is I think part of the issue is when you make a bad film, then a bad film in a franchise is that you go, well, that was bad and it did poorly, like it was poorly received or it was, poorly attended or whatever else.
Mm,
Then you go, okay, but for all these fans, we need to now fix it. So because
right.
we've now done a bad one, we now have to do a good one to undo the bad one.
Yeah.
And so because I feel like I was watching this at the end and I was going, like, that's the end for Woody. Him and
Yeah.
Bo Peep are just going to be like two divorcees who are now like, we're not getting married, but we're life partners. Do you know what I
Right.
mean? Like they're just going to
Yeah.
go drive around in her skunk and
Yeah. I feel like there definitely could be a Disney Plus series that follows them, going around with the carnival and, you know, getting all these different toys to have kids, right? Helping them
yeah.
to find their kid. But uh but it doesn't
It
feel like a good
No, it's a
end.
sad ending because they're toys and the fact that they can't just easily reunite with their friends. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's sort
Yeah.
of like what this might be a weird analogy to make, but it's sort of like what happened before with Europeans traveling over to the New World. Then they had to
Mm,
say goodbye to their friends and family, and they knew that they would never see them again because
right.
it was just way too difficult and dangerous and expensive a journey to travel across the Atlantic to go back to Europe and see their hometown again and all of their relatives and friends and everybody else. That it's just
Yeah.
like we're leaving this life forever and we probably won't ever see each other again. And that's how this ends
Yeah.
because they can't write postcards. They can't necessarily call each other easily.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So they're never, they had that little brief moment on the awning to say goodbye to each other.
Yeah.
Or maybe they were on the carousel. Either way, you know what I mean? They were right on the edge there.
Yeah.
That they have that little goodbye and that's it. And they just never reunite. They never see each other again.
Yeah.
Because,
Again, compared to if Woody had left Bo Peep there, where he had this whole, adventure with her,
yeah,
and then if
and
he
then
had
it's like
left
it's
her,
nice to
and
see that you're doing so well. I wish nothing but the
yes,
best for you in the future. I
yeah,
appreciate what you're doing.
yeah, and
But it's
maybe the
just
carnival comes to town and they can run into each
totally.
other again.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But this
Exactly.
is just like, yeah, ugh.
But that would be a good way to set it up for the next one is if the carnival does come to the town and
Yeah,
then
that's
they
true.
reunite in that way.
Yeah,
But the whole thing of them just living completely apart, potentially forever, because like the way Toy Story 3 leaves off is it's just like you could leave it there and everybody when they think about the movie, then they're like, in this fictional universe, Woody is still, he's got a kid and he and all of his friends are together and they're bringing joy to Bonnie's life and it's just they're playing for eternity in our minds. And
I'm
now,
honestly I'm getting chills just thinking about the end of Toy Story 3 because I love that
yeah,
so much as a perfect conclusion of Woody having to say goodbye to Andy, which is so hard
right,
to do,
right,
but he does it because it means that he'll get to spend the rest of his life with the rest of his friends.
yeah,
And then Toy
yeah.
Story
It's
4
so
just
beautiful. It's just like,
oh,
bye, losers. Out. I'm out.
oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I know. It's a really disappointing ending, and it's like, is this the end of Woody? Like,
Right.
it's
Yeah.
sad because
Yeah.
even with his horse, um,
Bullseye.
yeah, Bullseye, they're not going to be together anymore. That
Nope.
sucks.
Yep.
Anyway, we'll leave it off there.
Yeah, on a disappointing note, just
On
like Toy Story 4.
Absolutely. So yeah, feel free to comment below and like and share and subscribe and all that. But seriously, please do share if you know what I
Mhm.
mean. Like I would like to have a conversation in regards to this film because I feel like it deserves having a conversation since this
Yeah,
is such a beloved franchise and this is a really strange thing that they're doing in this film.
absolutely. Honestly, I want to hear that people agree with us about this, specifically me, but
Yeah,
us
yeah, yeah.
about this.
I
Because
agree with you. I'm just not as
yeah, yeah.
passionate about
No, I know. Yeah.
it. Yeah.
But yeah, so I want to see, that same kind of support to know that that we're not alone in our feelings
I
about
know
this.
that we're not. I'm
Right.
there's no way that we're alone on that. It's an interesting thing of how people have not pushed back against it. I haven't seen like
Yeah.
a big pushback against this. And
Yeah.
yeah. But maybe we can get something started. Let's bring
Yeah.
negativity into the universe.
Woo!
And it's only because we've seen such great films and that it's just like, why? Why did you do
Yes.
this?
Absolutely. I have such reverence for Toy Story 1, 2, and 3. There's a reason why during our Toy Story discussion, then I said, yeah, Toy Story 1, 2, or the Toy Story trilogy, and then the other one.
Right.
Because that's how Toy Story 4 feels.
Yeah.
It's just the other one.
Yeah. And it's even in such a bad movie with Toy Story 4, it shows the strength of the characters and the universe that you can
Mhm.
still have a lot that's working in a film that just is, really a departure from the other three that you
Yeah.
go, like even taking huge missteps, there's still so much good here.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. I do feel like, I let my thoughts on that be known. I really love a lot of things in Toy Story 4, but it's just it departs from the Toy Story canon so
Yeah.
much that I just can't stand it.
Right. Yeah, I get that. All right, folks. Well, thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Hey.
Ignore the bell, people. We're gonna keep going. We're still ignoring it. Don't worry. I, I don't know what that. I think that's the fire drill. All right, we're gonna go home. Yeah. All right, we're done.